Hello, hello, hello. Live from Denver. It is Friday night. There we are. Welcome to Critical Conversations for this, what is it, the third?
Yes.
3rd of May in the year of our Lord 2024. And as you can see, I am joined by my beautiful wife, Melissa.
Hello.
And she is beautiful, and we do love her. Yes, we do. Hey everybody! I'm really glad to be back. You can, if you're listening carefully, I'm not totally back up to speed.
Yeah.
I don't know that either of us totally are.
No, I'm not either.
We really had a doozy, man. I'm telling you, I have not been down for a week like this in years. Have you ever seen me down for a whole week? Was there one other time?
Last year around this time we both got that flu or whatever it was and ended up with bronchitis.
Yeah, that was real bad.
That was bad. Yeah.
But that was like a year ago, and that was for a few days.
Yeah.
This was a week.
And then 2 years ago when we got back from Kansas, we had that nasty thing.
Oh, that was really bad. That's right. No, there's no pinned comment for questions because Critical Conversations is not a Q&A show. You can throw questions at me in the comments if you guys want to. I may or may not pick them up as we're going along, and I'm sure we may have time for that at some point tonight, but that's not what we do here on Fridays. There will be a Critical Q&A on Sunday. That is the plan. 1 o'clock Mountain Time, usual time as we've been doing it. No, we didn't get tested for anything.
I did a home test for COVID and didn't have it.
Right. We will definitely get to our Snuggles, not Struggles cam, but I am going to have my say about my illness because it dominated my entire week. And I actually have some insightful recovery stuff to talk to you guys about with that too. Just because I really had to come face to face this week in the way that I haven't had to before with not my mortality, but with just the fact of, hey, guess what? You know, best laid plans, motherfucker, right? I like to be rude, but it was kind of that way. It was just kind of like I was so set, and I'll explain. But first off, let's get our quote of the week from my beautiful wife, Melissa.
So in the spirit of getting better, I found this quote: "Become addicted to constant and never-ending self-improvement." Anthony D'Angelo. So I take that as like you're never done working on yourself because nobody's ever perfect. So you have to be willing to keep improving yourself, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That is... That's it. You know, you wouldn't think once you get into this position or once you get into, when you see the benefit of giving yourself a break, giving yourself the opportunities and the reasons to change rather than stay solid and firm and static all the time, right? Not moving on issues or on culture or on your views about things. When you have a more liquid kind of worldview about stuff, which doesn't mean you don't stand for anything. That's not my point. My point is when you're willing to accede that there's things that may not be that goddamn important, and maybe this isn't a hill I have to die on.
Or maybe it isn't the way you thought it was.
Bingo. Right? Maybe you're open to change. That opens up the door to new ideas. That opens up your mind to accepting information, and the whole world can just turn on a dime. I mean, that's literally, a pretty good description of me getting out of Scientology in one way. So, yeah. So anyway, I think that there's a lot there. Hey, Stuart, I see you in the comments here. That's right. That's right. The hardest part is accepting you weren't necessarily all that great before. Nailed it. And I do have your email, by the way. It's been a week, and I'm not even kidding. On my back, in bed. I mean, you actually got better faster this time than I did.
Which was odd.
Very strange.
I mean, I was still sick, but I wasn't as sick as he was.
No, it was bad. Okay, let's do our Snuggles, not Struggles cam, because this is absolutely our little Benson, our little fur baby, definitely helped us through this. Yes. And he was so good, and he was so wonderful. when we were not necessarily so wonderful feeling. So here is our Snuggles Not Struggles cam for this week with our little Benzo. We actually took this just before the show.
There he is.
There he is with his, you'll see here, he's got this new chew toy that is, what is peanut butter?
Yeah, it's peanut butter flavored.
And he loves it. He is a chewer. Yeah, Benzo, I know, right?
Aggressive chewer.
He is aggressive, yes. That was a chew toy for aggressive dogs. He's got them little tiny teeth, but boy, he can really go to town.
He can chew. He ate one of my video games the other day. Well, he didn't swallow it. We just chewed it up, but he chewed on my purse strap the other day. He just chews.
Wow. Well, that is Benson. Fortunately, he doesn't chew our clothes and he doesn't chew our furniture.
Yeah, thank God.
He's not that kind of chewer. He doesn't chew the tablecloth there or anything. He's appropriate. But he is there he is. There's our little guy. There he is looking at that there. See, this was right before dinner, and so he was like, "Where's my food?" And we were delaying to give him that. So, all right. So there's your Snuggles Not Struggles cam for this week, and we hope that does provide some snuggles and take away some of your struggles, because love is the answer. Oh yes. Good stuff. Good stuff. So let me tell you some good news. Let me tell you some things that are kind of cool. I think I'd like to spend this show talking about that. That's why I kind of called it Getting Better, is really not just about physically getting better, but about trying to improve the vibe, of certain things in our lives, in my life, professionally, really, that are kind of exciting and fun and cool. And so let me start with this, and then we'll get into a couple other things. I got to talk today, and I have to share this with you guys. I got to do a talk today at. I did a virtual discussion, a virtual presentation, which I'm not going to repeat here because it's 6 pages. But it was a 20-minute or so talk about why and how multi-level marketing schemes are cults. And this talk was given to a group of people who had gotten together at a conference on multi-level marketing companies in Washington, D.C., including, I believe, chaired by and run by the deputy head of the Federal Trade Commission and a bunch of lawyers and people who work there. And they were there answering questions and kind of being at the receiving end of some pretty bitter people who had some things to say about their experiences, just like in the ex-cult world, in the ex-Scientology world, which you all are so familiar with. There's a whole nother social media world of anti-MLM, ex-MLM members. And by MLM, multi-level marketing, we're talking about Amway, we're talking about Herbalife, we're talking about companies that are operating on a very specific business model, quote unquote, that is designed mathematically, like very well tuned to completely screw everybody except the people at the top.
Yep.
That's a legal, working, legitimate thing that people can do these days, is they can start these multi-level marketing companies, or they can become part of these things. And FTC, other government, which is the primary government body that should be regulating this activity, it's a whole corrupt, disgusting, real mess. Excuse me, when you get into the legislation and regulation of these companies. You just wouldn't believe. But they are cults. And I don't mean that like in some exaggerated ha-ha way. I mean, they're cults. Mm-hmm. That's how they run. And they don't, there's no exceptions to this. This is the funny thing, is I haven't found one yet. And I've looked at, I don't know, many of these things. And I have been talking with, for years, I've been discussing this with other people. You'll find a man named David Fitzpatrick, I believe, and I did a podcast or two about this, Sensibly Speaking podcasts. And there's going to be more about this, because when I talk about, spreading my wings and moving beyond Scientology, this is exactly the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Is I want to get into the Mormons. I want to get into the Jehovah's Witnesses. I want to get into these other big groups, these really big groups. Scientology's pipsqueak compared to what the Moonies are up to, what the Mormons are up to. I mean, I'm telling you, some of you guys know the Mormons are scary.
Yes, they are.
Whoa.
They're into a lot of things.
A lot. It's not the people that I'm talking about. It's the entity of the Mormon church.
The people at the top.
Yeah. Let's be clear. Right? Your individual Mormons that you run into on the street, in Salt Lake City or, Provo or whatever. Wonderful people. There's no comment on them. Right? But when you start looking at structurally and over time what that group has been up to, and what the power that they wield, and the money that they have, and the influence that they've created, and the fact that they basically own a state of the United States, it's big. There's a lot there to talk about. I'm not aware of Grant Cardone being part of the MLM deal, but I will say that Grant Cardone will definitely stick his fingers into anything that will make him money. So if he's got connections in that direction, there you go. So we're not going to do a whole show on MLMs today, but I just wanted to tell you guys that I did that presentation today. I was invited to do that by a group of women who are ex-multi-level marketing victims, basically, who have as much to say about this, and gave, by the way, I believe there were 6 of them that presented, and then I gave the capping sort of speech of our section of the conference today, and we ended the conference. I was the last speaker, and I was so impressed by the level of knowledge and skill and study that these women had done to explain what had happened to them the same way we do in the ex-Scientology world. There was a licensed therapist who gave a whole rundown on the pseudo-cult personality, the pseudo-personality, and the self, and the psychology of personality and identity, which is a whole kind of branch of psychology. It's absolutely fascinating, and one of the things that I really enjoyed studying when I was doing my program, because it got into the whole thing about the pre-cult personality, and you've heard me talk about that, and I love talking about that, and how it's not quite that whole black and white thing of pre-cult, post-cult, especially for us second-generation members. Anyway, point is, listening to her talk about this from her profession, listening to a whole breakdown on the economics of this, listening to a breakdown on coercive control. This was a term that I didn't bring into this. They brought it in, and they were really bringing it. It was impressive to watch how dedicated they were to exposing and educating about this topic the same way I've been trying to do about Scientology and cults all these years, right? Same level of stuff, and really, really good stuff. So I was proud to be part of that today. And I was also really happy, just personally, to have given my first address to DC officials. I really want to do more of that. I think I think we've got to reach to these people. Now, we didn't, unfortunately, hear a whole lot back, more so than sort of, you got to understand there's all these rules and it takes time and blah, 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 rah, rah, rah. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the other thing, Fluffy. That's exactly right. In fact, I was talking to my mom about this. 0 separation of church and state. That's exactly right. It's not even a concept in Utah with the Mormons there. It's just not. They don't even think about it differently than that. There's a whole bunch of people, and it's funny, the Mormons are not the only ones with this, obviously, but I find this attitude to be incredibly anti-American, because it's literally our Constitution, First Amendment, right? Separation of church and state. I can't believe how many people call themselves patriots in this country. And this isn't even an ideological rant. I'm just saying I can't believe how many people align with this idea that their church is the one that should be in charge. Mm-hmm. Did we learn nothing from why this country was formed in the first place?
Yeah. But there are people that will swear that the founding fathers wanted Christianity involved in the government.
Just
and
ludicrous.
You're like, what? Where does it say that? Point it out to me.
Exactly.
In the Constitution where it says that.
Oh, it's bad. So the Mormons are in that group of evangelicals who are really hardcore about that. And they, and I kind of wonder if all of them as a body, which they are kind of working together in haphazard ways. And by this, I mean evangelical Mormons, but you also have evangelical Protestants and Baptists, Southern Baptists. And you have a whole bunch of folks who are very, very involved in this, let's tear down the separation of church and state. I'll also refer you to Dominionism and my talks with Clint Haycock about that. Again, Sensibly Speaking podcast material, if you want to look that stuff up. Any of my shows with Clint Haycock, I think we've done about 4 or 5, all going into this stuff in different ways. It's a real thing. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not some weird idea. It really is a dedicated goal and a lot of money being put into tearing down that wall. And Elk
of Antioch, no. One Nation Under God was not originally on anything. It started in the 50s during the Red Scare.
Oh,
they
yeah.
started putting it on the money and put it in the Pledge of Allegiance.
That's right. It was a blowback to, or an effort by Congress to separate the United States from the godless atheists of the communist Soviet Union. And so we had to position ourselves as opposite of that. And therefore we embraced God and put One Nation Under God on our money. And boy, was that.
And put it in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah. And
that
I really
was not originally there either.
wish that hadn't happened. Not because I'm like some big anti-God, anti-belief guy. I don't care what you believe, right? But when you make that the country's religion and that kind of stuff, I'm telling you, there's lines you just don't want to cross because historically we know people abuse the power.
Yeah, we have freedom of religion in this country, which means any religion you are allowed to practice or no religion.
That's right. Yeah, it gets...
that's the way it is.
I wish it weren't true, and I wish I could sit here and be idealistic enough to believe that that people are going to be better than they are. Navigating our way through the world requires that we have both eyes open, and this is something that's becoming more and more clear to me over the years, especially recently as, attacks have happened and bullshit has been sort of slung my way by people I never imagined that would happen from, that it makes you open your eyes. You can close your eyes and go, no, everything's fine. Or you can go, holy damn shit. Wow. Yeah. This is the world I live in and I got to deal with it as it is. Right. Oh, I guess the mailman just arrived. Yep. I don't know if you can hear Benson in the background. He's barking. So anyway, I kind of advise a more practical approach without losing the idealism, but keeping it real, not getting cynical about it, but keeping it real, right? Mm-hmm. People are the way they are. And diving into the MLM world really shows all these parallels to the cult world in a way that are, excruciatingly eye-opening, because you have to see that where the cult world is this group, and this group, and this group, right? And this group. And they're all different. And they're all a bunch of dudes or individuals or people getting together and just getting crazy. And the leadership taking advantage of that power they have. But it's usually pretty localized. But these long-term groups, right? The Moonies, the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses, what Scientology, somebody suggested this to me this week, and I believe this is true now. The more I think about it, right? The David Miscavige is probably paying a whole lot of attention and has been for years to the Mormon church because they're a model for him to follow. Why all the real estate investment? Take a look at the real estate portfolio of the Mormon church sometime. It starts answering, you start going, oh, maybe this is what's going on, right? You normalize these cults, you normalize these extremist belief systems, but over time, these guys entrench themselves into a state, into the federal government, into finance, hundreds of billions of dollars. It starts sounding, and I hate going here sometimes because it starts sounding like, conspiracy rhetoric, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I am considering myself a realist. Anyway, there was a couple things I wanted to share with you guys one thing I wanted to share with you at least from my talk today, because I thought it was particularly well put, and I don't do that often, so I thought this might be kind of fun to share with you. I was talking about manipulation as part of what MLMs get up to. And this was sort of part of what I was just discussing, actually, in terms of kind of accepting the reality of who and what we are. Because if we're going to really ever change or provide help or move the ball down the road, it requires a realistic assessment of the situation, not a fake one. And I said here, the true manipulation begins as they are sold on a system that's designed to take them for as much money as possible, the people who sign up for MLMs, while convincing them that this same system that is going to make them millionaires, right? The system that is going to screw them out of so much money is the system that they are sold, I'm going to be a millionaire. Mm-hmm. They literally show you the numbers, but the people don't add them up. They don't put it together. And I said, it sounds like an extraordinary feat to convince someone to sink their money and their whole life into a scam like this. Like, wow, how could you do that, right? But unfortunately, our social psychology, the methods of influence we respond to, and even our own sense of identity all play into agreeing with the con. We push ourselves into this stuff. And I'm gonna go there again later in a little bit here with this. The harsh reality of human psychology is that when our emotional needs are being played like a string orchestra, it can be very hard to not want to dance. I was kind of proud of that little phrase.
I like that. That's good. Yeah.
Right. It's I just wrote that this morning, but that's, it's that kind of thing. It's like you have to be disciplined as a thinker, as a feeler, in order to not respond to some of these tactics. They're that good. Mm-hmm. They hit you in the gut that hard. And it's not, and here's, this is the other thing one of the other things I want to talk about. Ego hooks. I don't know what else to call this. Mel and I were talking this week about stuff, and I don't know even where to begin. I was really, 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 really giving myself a very hard time this week while I was laid up in bed.
Yes, he was.
It was bad. And I was so upset that I could not get up, that I could not make myself sit at my desk and get my work done, so that I could get my metering video done on time. And after putting it off and then having to put it off again, and feeling like I could feel this energy, this mass in my head that made me feel like my head was exploding or something. Like there was so much, oh, you got to hit the little, there you go. There was so much pressure. I could feel it, and I don't think it was just because of my sinuses. It was everywhere, and it was hurting. It was plaguing me. Like I was really, really pissed off at myself for missing my date, and I realized that part of that had gone back to this New Year's resolution that I had made this year, because I have, as you guys have seen me talk about many times, I've been very upset with myself for over-promising and under-delivering things. And that tone scale video was the first thing, and I got that done. And I said on New Year's, this is the year that changes. And here's the date I'm giving myself for the tone scale. Here's the date for the metering video. It's a drop dead. I'd rather die than not make this. Well, I think I was trying to die rather than not making it. Because that was what was coming true. And I was killing myself over it. And it took me a few days and your help, to kind of wake up to the fact that I was the only one doing this to myself. Mm-hmm. And it was like, whoa, dude, what are you doing? That was kind of a thing. But it gets worse. So it was only really about 2 days ago that I finally was like, okay, wait a second. Hold on. Right. What if I just drop this? What if I just let this go? And it was one of those kind of things where I was laying in bed kind of feeling so crappy. And so let it go was just on repeat in my head. Let it go. Let it go. So, so I finally let it go, right? I was able to do that and, or finally kind of come to this place. But in order to get there, and this is what I want to kind of just share with you guys was, there was a lot of back and forth with you and others about ego, right? And about like, where was this coming from? Right. And feeling like why all this pressure and, you know, you I don't know. It started messing with my sense of self in terms of integrity, in terms of keeping my word, in terms of being, you know, somebody who is that person, you know, and that this was very, very, very important to me. Do you remember how it got back to the Scientology stuff?
I know it did. I think it's just
because
they make you feel like if you're sick, you're doing it to yourself or something.
That's right. Thank you. That was exactly right. But then the whole thing about pulling it in. Remember that? I sure do. And the whole thing about how, you know, I've given up the belief, the idea that, a sick person is pulling it in. Is the Scientology concept, right? Of if you become sick or ill, you are connected to a suppressive person, but also you have done things to that suppressive person that make you weak, that make you open to their suppression. If you had committed no wrong deeds, you know, no overts in Scientology speak, to that suppressive person, you'd be impervious to them, theoretically. This is what Hubbard writes about. Well, that part was kind of erased from my brain. I didn't care about any of that. But this lower level emotional feeling was still lingering. And it was a feeling. It wasn't a thought. You know, there's like this difference. And the feeling was I was wrong. And I must have done something, or there must be some reason, right, that there's something I've done that is causing this condition. And man, that was weird. When that finally kind of, I don't know how else to describe this. I don't know how y'all think. I don't know how you think, actually. I don't, you know, you only know how you think, you know. When it bubbled up, when it finally became words, right? And I could think about it and go, wait a minute, what is this? What is this feeling, right? Mm-hmm. And it was this feeling that I was somehow, you know, in the wrong for being sick. And it had, I know.
Like you have any choice in the matter?
And you have to get back. And exactly. Right. Somebody, you know, you have to have somebody point this out to you. And it tied in with and at first I was like, oh yeah, and that New Year's thing. And I was all getting fucked up about that because I was beating myself up about it because I'd been beating myself up for years about not meeting these targets and not getting done what I said I was going to do. And, you know, and always feeling like I kind of suck because of that. Right. And, and so I could let it go to that degree, but it actually got kind of worse, right? Because then it was like kind of going back down to like this ego crap, right? Of like, well, this is who I am, right? And like, if I can't, this was what it was, right? Was then it connected to this other Scientology shit. And that was that you are only as valuable as you're serving others, as you are helping other people. That's the only value you have is what value you provide to other people. And this has been, I don't relish, talking about this way, but The fact of the matter is that that's been the thinking in my mind for most of my life. And it's one of those deep, deep things that you feel your way through. You don't think your way through stuff like that, right? Once it gets that deep, it's just kind of who you think of yourself as. And it's how you drive yourself, and it's how you get things done, and it's what motivates you. It's your motivation, right? It's why you get up in the morning. I don't get up in the morning to make money. That's not what I'm doing, right? I get up and I don't get up in the morning to take care of my kids because we don't have them. Mm-hmm. I get up in the morning to help people. That's what gets me out of bed. And but the idea that I'm only as valuable as I'm doing that is a little fucked up for me as an individual, right? Because that's not true. I do have other value besides, what other people think about me. But when that drives your motivational engine, then it's like, oh shit, this is pretty basic stuff. And it kind of went back to I was kind of thinking about my cult recruitment, right? When I got the sort of, here you go, Chris, here's a goal for you for your life. Let's save the planet. That old chestnut. So here we are with let's save the planet. Well, y'all know I'm well beyond the idea that I'm going to save the planet. Believe me, that thought is gone, right? That is not part of what I'm doing anymore. But when I first kind of adopted that as an idea, as a thing, it was an alternative goal. This is where I was kind of going to, okay? And this is sort of but it's real. It's how it was, it's how it is. And as far as I'm concerned, this is kind of a recovery step for me a little bit in talking about this and experiencing this. So that's why I wanted to share all this. I'm not just on some ego fest here talking about myself. I hope that in talking about this, I hope somebody can connect with some part of what I'm saying when it comes to cult recovery, because where this is going is, before that idea of saving the world was sort of implanted in my head by Scientology recruiters when I was 17, I had a different goal for my life. I had a purpose that I was going to move on and I was going to do. And that was going to be and as delusional as Save the World was, this was probably just as delusional, but it was what I was doing. And it was, I wanted to be the next Stephen King. That was it. I think I've talked about that before, right? I wanted that. And I didn't want it just because I wanted to write. I did want to write, and I thought I could write, and I thought I could make a living at it. I do make a living at it, if I think about it, right? Mm-hmm. But I want to be a fiction writer, and I was going to write, that kind of thing. And I figured Stephen King's career path good enough for me. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to be an English teacher, and I'm going to write my way out of that job, and I'm going to become a writer, and I'm going to be famous. And I wanted to be famous. That was part of the picture. Mm-hmm. And that's where the ego hook was. And that's what I wanted to get to with all of this monologuing here today, is these ego hooks. Because that was the little hook sticking out of my ego that Scientology latched onto. Is I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be known. I wanted people to recognize me as somebody special. I was 17 years old. I'd come out of high school as a, kind of geeky, nerdy kid who never had a date. And people definitely did not admire me, definitely did not like me, definitely did not think I was the shit. I was the other guy. And you all know that guy in high school. Maybe some of you were that guy too, but that was who I was. I was the guy whose nose was in a book all the time, and I thought I was the smartest person in the room. Sometimes I was. But, I was riding high on that ego because I didn't have the physicality to ride high on my body or on my accomplishments as a sports or, kind of that kind of guy in high school, right? Which is the one that all the girls gravitated to. I wasn't that. I was the opposite. So in my own mind, I had to compensate for that by building myself up and deciding that I was going to go be this famous person. And it wasn't a revenge fantasy. I don't mean it that way, but it was all just part of the picture of who I was. And that was the hook that they got me on, because it wasn't just about saving the world. And this is what I wanted to share today is when I got recruited to become staff, yeah, I definitely got on board with saving the world. But you know what else I got on board with? They were going to train me to do this job called course room supervisor. And they were going to send me down to Los Angeles, which they did. And I was going to train at Big Blue. And I'd never been there before. I hadn't been there since I was a kid, right? I hadn't really ever been there. And they were going to train me on the special Sea Org training project. This was 1987. This was October, October 1987. I was going to go down to what was called supervisor school. And it was a special Sea Org project being run internationally. Every area, every Scientology continental area had a Sea Org mission that was training course room supervisors for all the orgs. This was sort of the pre-golden age of tech. This was before the golden age of tech or Miscavige were even really around doing stuff like this. This was what I was doing. And the deal, the thing that hooked me on that was not that I was going to be an educator or I was going to be a supervisor. It was that I was going to be the best supervisor. I was going to be more highly regarded than a flag trained supervisor. And flag trained has always been the highest echelon of training you can get in Scientology. You go train at Flag in Clearwater as a staff member, that's it. You can't get better training anywhere except when the Sea Org says you can.
Okay.
Like by this mission, right? Who'd been specially trained by Senior CS International. And he trained them personally. And they were going to come down and they had these new check sheets and new tech and all this new stuff. And wasn't it going to be amazing? You know, like I said, it was the pre-golden age of tech, golden age of tech stuff. If you know all the Scientology crap, that makes sense. And that's what hooked me. I'm going to be the best. This group of adults who's recruiting me to be a Scientology staff member at 17 years old, I'm, as wet behind the ears as you can be. You know, my real world experience was Burger King. Right? And this group of adults is love bombing the shit out of me. Right? Like 30, 40-year-old people looking at me with admiration and love in their eyes, telling me I'm going to be the hotshot supervisor who's going to be better than they are. My course room supervisor who's been souping me for 2 years on my courses that I've been doing, I'm going to be better than him. What? What? Right? See that comment there?
Aww.
Mm-hmm. I keep telling her that. It's totally okay with me if you guys do too.
Thank you.
So that's what hooked me. Because I had a little hook sticking out of my ego. There it is. Let's go, baby. And I think it's true. And I'm now gonna project. But I think it's true that's how cults get you, right? We talk about it. I've talked for years about emotional appeal, emotional manipulation, but why? How come Joe gets reeled in, but Sally and Bill and Frank don't? Because they didn't have those little ego hooks sticking out for that emotional manipulation to catch, right? Scientology doesn't catch everybody, not by a long shot. Do their recruitment methods work on everybody? How come? I think this is why. I think it's because of these little hooks in our ego that are just sitting there waiting to be caught, right? We're waiting. They're invitations for manipulation.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And when we talk about finding your ruin, right, that kind of ties into it a little bit, right? It opens the person up to, what are my vulnerabilities? What are my problems and issues? What are my weak spots? Where do I think I could be better? That's what finding the ruin of the Scientology recruitment thing, that's what that's all about, is getting you to open up that way and reveal your little hooks, right? I just love using that little term. I don't know how long it'll last, but I thought it was kind of clever. So, so that's how they kind of get you with that. And I thought that might open up, some ideas a little bit in terms of looking back at, okay, so if we want to really look at, well, how did this happen to me in the first place? It was a cooperative effort, and it's not a blame game. Please don't take what I'm saying that way. And I know it could be construed that way, and I so don't mean it that way. I'm not blaming myself right now for having an ego. No one can. There's not a single human being who doesn't have one. That's what makes us human, is we've got that thing, and it drives our survival. It drives our image, our self-image. It drives what we think is important and how we present to the world. It's inseparable from us. There's no such thing as a human being that doesn't have an ego. So it's nothing to be ashamed of, and it's nothing to victimize people over. But if people don't know that, and they don't know that about themselves, then they can be vulnerable to having that ego or those ego hooks manipulated. And it takes a pretty good willingness to look pretty honestly at yourself to be able to acknowledge that.
Oh, sure.
Right? I mean, shit, it's only taken me 54 years.
I know the feeling. I'm
Right?
not 54, but it's definitely taken me a long time to get there.
Yeah. So, so how do we... So it's not a blame game. It's not, oh, you let yourself get hooked into the cult, you fool, right? That's so not the point. But if we're going to recover from the experience, if we're really going to get honest about how we got wrangled into it, even second gens, because here's a little thing, not all second gens stay.
That's true.
Not by a long shot. There's a lot of people who were raised in cults who just said, see ya, when it came time, or they ran away, or they took off. They never got hooked. My brother is one example of that.
Yep.
Not once. And I'm talking about hours of Scientology being applied to this kid. My brother, growing up. Study problems, social problems, right? He was a hellion. And he's a great guy now. He's a family guy. He's got 2 kids. He's living large. He just graduated college. He's like an accountant guy now. I mean, he's amazing. But he never, ever, ever bought into Scientology because it never hooked him. And we tried. Oh boy, did we try. I tried as an adult. I tried as a kid. My mom, my dad, especially my dad. Oh my God. Hours and hours of working with him, trying to apply Scientology to get him to nothing. Just wouldn't do it. Right. And it wasn't that he thought it was a scam. Kind of, even as a kid, he was kind of like, yeah, no, this is not, It didn't hook his ego. Right. Because his thing, and I don't think I'm oversharing here of my brother's part to say he's an independent dude. Always has been, right? Always has been. And he just wasn't into being helped that way. And, to his credit. And he never got hooked, right? And a lot of people don't get hooked. So even being raised in a cult, there still has to be a moment, and I can certainly speak from my own experience, and I believe this is true for others. There has to be some moment or series of moments where that cult indoctrination does work on you, and you do get manipulated into it, and you do believe it, and you do go with it. For whatever reason, whatever the personal reasons are, I don't say that it has to be the same as me. It's not always saving the world, right?
A different type of cult may have been able to get your brother if it had offered different things or love bombed about different topics. what was his ego looking for?
Exactly. That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
Whatever it's going to be, right? Maybe it's not going to be Scientology, but you're going to wander down the street and Kabbalah is going to rip your soul apart, right? or right? Or NXIVM's going to. It doesn't even have to be a religious thing, right? Could be some acting class you get into, right? That old example. And, and here's the cult leader who's the acting class teacher. And he, you think this guy is Mr. Authority when it comes to, getting you your road to riches as an actor. Turns out that dude's just been playing you and is going to continue playing you for as long as you let him. Right? That happens all the time. Sports cults, acting cults, any group you want to talk about can become that. So whatever is going to hook people is going to be different from person to person, but the mechanics of it, I think, are the same. And that's why you see me talking about that mechanical crap all the time, and emotions and emotional needs. And, I even keep the list here of all of them on my little Post-it notes of glory here, because there's only so many things that categorically that influence us. There's only so many things that we're going to fall for. And, even in the con world, they have names for all the different cons. They categorize it. They work it out, right? This is well understood stuff. Anyway, I thought it was kind of interesting to have a week where all of that sort of just like in my head or whatever. And I wanted to share it with you guys, just personal insights. I'm not trying to write academic papers here. I'm just trying to share my experiences and thoughts about this and what it might have to do with recovery, from a cult or from a coercive experience. I don't think day one of recovery is taking responsibility for your own shit, right? I think day one is, is figuring out what the hell just happened to you, And I think day 2 and 3 and 4 are kind of consumed with that. So I'm not suggesting that this is something you throw at people right away. This idea of personal responsibility and ego and the codependency of it and all that is kind of down the road sort of stuff, but you got to get there, I think, because I don't know that there's an honest way of looking at it otherwise. I mean, I'm not talking about children here. We were manipulated into this cult as children. We made decisions as children. And those decisions affected the rest of our lives. Mm-hmm. They were our decisions too. Again, not a blame game, right? It's just an acknowledgement of like, oh yeah, I remember when they hooked me. I remember how they got me. I remember my thought process that contributed to that and made it real and made me think, yeah, this is what I need to be doing, because then you can really let it go. Then you're like, oh, Jesus, man, that was stupid. Right? But it's not just the lie of, well, they did this to me and they did that to me. Yeah, of course they did. They absolutely did. I'm not saying that's the lie, but to think that's all that happened. Right. There was a point we went along with it. There was a point we went, yep, this is the right thing to do. Yep, I see the world this way and I'm happy with this and this makes sense to me, right? I think that's important. So there you go. Yeah. Okay. Those are the things I wanted to share.
All right.
Now, I did not have my phone charged. It's in the other room. It's been charging this whole time, so I'm not going to go get it because we're only down to 10 minutes. But
yeah,
if we are, okay, so let me say these things first, and then if you want to throw, since we're live and since we got some time, if you want to throw some questions at me, I'm more than happy to answer. We're not doing a podcast this week. I just wasn't down after doing my presentation today and other stuff. I was just like, no, we're going to do this show and I'll bring back the podcast next week. I actually have an interview I think you guys are going to like that'll be going up next week. So that's happening, but we are going to do critical Q&A on Sunday. So like I said, so we'll be here for that. And I hope you guys will join me for that. So yeah, there we go. Yeah. What about Mel's illness was a much calmer thing, I think.
Well, I mean, yeah. I spent Sunday in bed sleeping all day long. And I did have some rough moments, and I really felt tired, but I was not as bad as Chris. Like, I just wasn't. He had a fever at one point.
Yeah, it sucked.
It was bad. Which is weird, because it's usually the other way around. Because he got sick first, too. And usually it's like, I get sick, and then if he gets sick, then he does, and it's usually not as bad as me, but...
Yeah, exactly.
Other way around this time.
That's right. This is first time. Q&A will be at 1 o'clock Denver time, usual time, as we've been doing it for weeks now. We'll keep it at that. That way we get down to the secular hub.
Yeah.
And we get to see our friends and do our coffee and community, and I still get to do the live. Because for months now, I wasn't going down to the hub because we were doing the live in the morning. So that's why the switch, and that's why it's going to stay that way. And then right after we do the Q&A, then I usually record with Tony and then post that for Monday. So no podcast this week. And I'm not setting a date as I sit here right now. I'm thinking probably next Thursday. I kind of really let it go on like this, oh my God, if I don't get this meter video done, I'm just, an asshole. It's getting done. Okay. It's already it's written. It's mostly written. And we got some video work done. Yes. It's all edited and ready to go. Actually, I thought about showing you one, but then I was like, nah, I'm not going to preview these. You'll just have to wait and see. But she and I shot some stuff with with the e-meter that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. And, anyway, so this week for sure, I want to get that thing out. And then next weekend, I'll probably, we'll have the podcast next weekend, but I might do I'm not sure if we're going to have a Q&A next week or not, because I'm going to Portland.
Right. So we probably won't have a Friday night show either. That's
right. We won't be here next Friday because I will be in Portland. I'm going to the Portland Safe Portland conference. If you've seen PTS for Life, Jeff Beaumont's channel, he did a whole video about this. I did a video podcast interview with Ashlyn Hilliard weeks ago where we talked about the Safe Portland thing, and she's one of the organizers of it, and she's also one of my alumni. So I'm really looking forward to going out there and meeting her in person, and other people who are also part of our cohort are also going to be there. So it's going to be a little Salford reunion there as well, which is going to be great. And I'm going to do a talk there next weekend, in person this time, not virtual. So that flight's booked, and that's all happening next weekend. So I'll try to squeeze out as much content as I can, but definitely before I go, I want to get this metering video out to you. So that's why I'm saying Thursday. That gives me some days to kind of line my schedule up and not kill myself and still get everything done that needs to get done so that it's the best presentation I really want it to be. That was the other thing, was I realized in my time crunchy mind the timing had become more important than the quality, and that's the first time that ever happened. And I was like, no, quality always first, right? I want to give you the best possible production that I can, and so I need to give myself those days, 1, to recover still, and 2, to get that work done. So once I sort of ease off on myself, it got a lot easier to decide that. So all right. So there we go, guys. Oh, let's do our little critical thinking cards here.
All right.
Oh, that's a good question, Stuart. That's an interesting question, though, because Stuart asked, what are the other categories of emotional need at that level of abstraction besides ego? I don't know if I meant to categorize ego as an emotional need. That's interesting. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think of ego as sort of more of a thing, right? It's a mental construct, obviously. It's not like it's really some little monster that resides in your head. But I think of it more as an identity construct, or a reflection of our self-identity and survival instinct and that kind of thing. more so than I think of ego as an emotional need. I don't think it would be defined that way. Emotional needs have to do with how ego manifests across our life and what things we find important or need in our life based on our upbringing, our culture, language, and understanding of the world. That's how I would define emotional needs. Community, identity, serenity, volition, things like that. That's sort of the manifestation of how our ego exerts itself in life, and we call that emotional needs. It's nothing precise there, nothing academic there, but that's off the top of my head. So that's how I would put that. All right. What do we got, baby?
We've got the Dunning-Kruger effect. The more you know, the less confident you're likely to be. Because experts know just how much they don't know, they tend to underestimate their ability. But it's easy to be overconfident when you have only a simple idea of how things are. Be skeptical of very confident opinions that lack expert understanding.
Yes. What was that last line? Be skeptical of very confident opinions that lack expert understanding. Oh, please.
Yes.
We could use a lot more of that in the world these days.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Definitely X-Sci, and I will definitely keep you guys posted on the community tab. Good point. I've only really started using that more recently, so good. I will do that. And yeah, I think you can be PTS to yourself in Scientology, but I think that requires you to be operating on evil intentions or something. If I remember, it's tied in with that somehow or something. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Wow. Yeah. Look at that. All right. I guess we'll get going. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming around. Thanks for your support. As always, got my book here. If you haven't bought it, I highly recommend that you do this because it's awesome. And of course, you can also get it as an audiobook on Amazon. Got to plug that. I also had a really nice success, which I can't share a single word with you about, with a client this week that went quite well. I was very, very happy to prevent somebody from or help extract somebody from a situation involving Scientology that was kind of a nice, hey, that was fun. So I can share that much with you. I wish I could share more, but I keep that stuff strictly confidential. So that was nice. And so again, if you would like to talk to me or, need my help or advice with some coercive situation or problem or issue you're having, you can always contact me via my website or via my email. All right. And we can talk. And on that happy note, let's wrap up.
Good night.
Good night, Bess.